Hello, my beautiful cozy dreamers. Welcome back to my gaming channel. First of all, I want to say thank you guys so much for 100 subscribers. It means so much to me. I posted about it on my Instagram, so check it out on Game Like Gabriella on Instagram. So thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much. We grew so fast, and I can't wait to get to the next 100. So for this build, I wanted to do something super unique and different. I have not seen anyone do this, and I thought it'd be so fun because this is a different type of build. This is going to be Snow White's creepy forest and her cottage. So we're going to use we're going to use the Forgotten Lands because this to me is the perfect place for this aesthetic. Because I have my pumpkin patch in the front of my Forgotten Lands, I decided to kind of close it off as its own separate build. So first thing I did was move my well into this little nook, and then I used two of the trellises around it to create this little, focal point. Now I closed it off, adding a bunch of trellises, some of the floral wood arches, and then one of the Nightmare Before Christmas arches. Now the rest of this is going to be our creepy forest. As you can see, I have the purple cottage in the background by the little pond. You can see the lights are on. So at first I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to create the creepy forest from Snow White. I love Snow White. It's one of my favorite Disney movies, and the creepy forest scene and her meeting the seven dwarves is just such a fun and creepy Disney moment. And I think it's a moment that is really beautifully done. The animation is incredible. It kind of freaked me out as a kid. It still freaks me out. And so I wanted to recreate the story vibe in my valley. So what I did was I added a bunch of swamp trees and a bunch of the sinister trees, as well as stumps, the bear trees. So all of the sinister and bear looking trees, I added a bunch of those. And then I was kind of like, okay, what do I want to do here? So I figured I want to tell the story of the movie. So as you can see, the cottage is all the way to the back. And then I put Jack Skellington's house right up in the front of the build because I wanted it to look like she's going through the forest and she comes across Jack Skellington's creepy house. And then she makes her way to the cottage to safety and she meets the seven dwarves. So that is the whole vibe. So I wanted to create this build because I thought it was so different, unique, and I definitely think I'm the first one to do this. I also think it's really cool to have something different that tells a story and also kind of plays out a scene from a Disney movie. Once I realized that that was the story I was going for, I decided to add in the Forgotten Lands rocks to make a path. These are great because they don't create an obstacle, they blend in, but they also help me as I'm running through. If I want to go to the cottage, I have a path so I'm not getting distracted by all the trees. When you add this many trees, it can be a little difficult to navigate. So having the pathing here really helps not only with the story that I'm telling, but it also helps me as I'm playing the game to know exactly where I need to go and also to clear a path, and I can move the trees around and make this path perfect so that I can get to the cottage. I also added some of the Forgotten Lands rocks to add a little bit more spooky and creepiness. Next, I'm working on Jack Skellington's little area. As you can see, he's towards the front. As I mentioned, I wanted it to be like a creepy little nook where she finds all these scary things in the forest as she's running through. And this is also great because it gives me a chance to decorate a little nook for Jack Skellington because I really love all the Nightmare Before Christmas items. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. So I'm adding the fountains, the Zero companion houses, the pedestals, the creepy little chicken, basically all of the Nightmare Before Christmas items, the hills, and it just helps so much to have this here because when Halloween comes, I can really decorate this with a lot of pumpkins and still have him and have his little area because I love Jack Skellington. I love Nightmare Before Christmas, so I wanted to make sure to incorporate this into the build somehow. I decided to add a bunch of melted candles everywhere because the little glow from the candles makes it feel a little extra spooky, and it adds that aesthetic that the forest has in Snow White where she sees like glowing eyes of different animals and creepy things everywhere. So the little glowing candles in all the nooks of the forest really add that creepy, spooky little vibe when it is dark out. Next thing I did was go up to the 0 companion houses and add all of the dark and spooky animals. So I added all of the ravens and all the dark colored foxes, raccoons, squirrels, the spooky squirrel, all of the creepy dark ravens and birds, because as if you're familiar with Snow White, you know that when she's in the forest, all these creepy, scary animals and birds and things kind of jump out at her and it freaks her out. So I thought this was really cute with the narrative that I'm creating here, where walking through the forest, she's greeted by all these creepy things that freak her out. Once I did that, I really got inspired by the whole narrative I was creating to do a little nook that reminds me of the witch. So as you know, her whole lore is that she bites the apple that the witch gives her. And I thought it would be so cute to add this to our lore here in our little narrative. So I added a cauldron. Apparently Nala really likes the cauldron. And I dropped a bunch of apples and I added a couple of apple trees. I thought this looked so cute. It really gives that feeling that, you know, it's Snow White's story. She's walking through the forest and she comes across the apples and the cauldron and the spooky witch. Maybe she lives in that tree. Ooh, she lives in that creepy tree house, and it really adds to that creepy forest aesthetic. As you can see, when it's sunset or nighttime, the candles and everything just glow so creepily and it looks so cool. Next thing I'm going to do is start adjusting the trees around our rock path. So you can do the rocks first and then do the trees. Honestly, I was doing this just inspired as I was going. I didn't have a plan until I started building. So at this point, I moved some trees around and then I added even more foliage detailing. This is a build heavy on the foliage, which I love because it makes it easy for new players to create it. And it's also a lot less stressful than detail-oriented interior builds. I'm adding logs and stumps and all types of creepy bare foliage. Another thing I want to mention is that I did use the trees in a specific order. So what I mean by that is that the trees that are front facing the, like at the beginning of our little creepy forest, are a lot of the bare, creepy, sinister trees. As you move down towards the cottage, there is more of real foliage, and you'll see that as we go along. So the swamp trees and the bare trees are really the creepy part. Another thing I want to mention is if you notice, the bare trees are kind of spiking through the swamp trees. You can actually layer those bare trees with other trees and give it a creepy effect. So I added a bunch more of the bare trees and layered those with the swamp trees until I felt like it was creepy enough. Then I decided that going towards the cottage, I wanted to make it look like it does in the movie. So we're adding a lot more trees around the cottage to make it feel more welcoming. So basically we're doing a gradient effect. As we get closer to the cottage, we're adding more regular trees. And then at the cottage, there's going to be a lot more beautiful trees. If you look at images, if you Google like Snow White's cottage from the movie, you'll see that her house is pretty bare, but there are like some birch trees around, a couple of little like axes and stumps and barrels and things like that. So we're going to add those details in as well. Around her house, I'm adding fir trees, acacia trees, and birch. For the area around the cottage, I'm adding in a bunch more trees, and you can feel free to use whatever trees you like. I'm using the acacia trees, the birch trees, and the dragon trees, I think they're called. I'm also adding some of the scraggly bare bushes around the pathing of the rocks. And then I also added some furniture detailing like the brown spindle. I'm also adding some of the tree stumps, some tree logs. I wanted it to look really cottage core and very provincial, very simple. This is, you know, Snow White's time is before technology. So a very simple, very natural foliage heavy vibe, as well as items that are made of wood like the spindle. I'm also going to add in a stone well as well later on. I also added one of the little bird houses and some wood logs, or the stack of firewood. Now, because we need the animals, hello, Snow White is all about the singing birds and the forest animals. So I'm adding 4 of the tropical animal houses, just because the red ones are just too bright here, but the green ones kind of blend in with all of our trees and foliage. And then in the houses, I'm going to add all of the bright, colorful, fun animals, like the colorful birds, the colorful bunnies, the pink, yellow bunny, the blue bunny, the white bunny, and a bunch of the colorful birds like the pink and green birds that we had in the premium shop, the white fox, all of the light colored animals that give that aesthetic that Snow White is singing to them. And again, it just adds to the narrative of Snow White's whole aesthetic and her lore, that she is just a little forest nymph just going through singing to the little birdies and the squirrels. Next to the cottage, I thought it would be so cute to do a little build that represents the 7 dwarfs. So because they're minors, I thought it would be cute to create this little outdoor nook, just kind of like the way we have like a tool shed these days, but this would be like a mining shed. And because we don't have a shed, I use the metal spike fencing poles. Like, you know how when you use a path, if you just put down one, you can get like a little pole kind of. So I use 4 of those to kind of mark our little area. And I decided to mine right here to get some stones. So I'm going to create a little nook using some of the diamonds, some of the crystals, and then some droppable items like fiber, as well as a tool rack, the Monsters Inc. metal cart, and just a few little items to create this really cute little nook. I also put down a chest. That way I have outdoor storage as well. Some stone, again, droppable items. And then I also later on decided to put a little table, a little chair, and one of Snow White's gooseberry pies to represent her little added area to this vibe. Just to represent that, you know, she's with the dwarves now. So when they need a snack, Snow White makes a cute little pie for them. Once I was happy with that, I decided to extend our sinister brick pathing to the cottage. I thought it would look really, really cute to have a nice path that leads us into the cottage. Just makes it look a little bit more realistic, like, you know, they built this pathing out, or this pathing is a little overgrown, but it stays visible because they walk every day to get their mining tools, and they come here all the time to work and hang out. And it just helps me as well if I'm playing, because I can use this area to store extra diamonds if I mine here and my inventory is full, or I can add more things to it later. So then I'm going to add some foliage around the pathing. I always like to do this with my pathing to make it look more realistic. I'm adding more of the scraggly bushes, again, some rocks, and some of the extra pathing to connect the pathing in front of the house to our little side area. Now I'm just making some adjustments to that outdoor area. I decided to move the metal fencing and actually extend it so it has a little bit more of an entrance aesthetic. And I really like the way this creepy metal bar vibe looks here. I think it looks really cool and industrial, and it matches the Forgotten Lands aesthetic. I also added an ancient vacuum here. I thought it looked cool, kind of like a mining nook. I don't know, kind of has like a mining aesthetic to it. I love the glow of it, and a little glow looks really cool in the Forgotten Lands. I'm also going to add some melted candles here to continue that same aesthetic that we have in the rest of the build. I also added some of the gray rock pathing in front of the entrance to just give it a little bit more of an entrance kind of look. And this is when I got the idea to add a little table. So I'm adding one of the clamp tables with one of Snow White's gooseberry pies on top of it. I think the little pie looks so cute. And then I decided to add an apple in front of the pie to really, really hone in on that Snow White aesthetic. I really wanted it to feel like anyone who comes here to my valley in the future will really feel that Snow White vibe. Next, I'm adding in some more detailing around Jack Skellington's house with more foliage, creepy vines. I forgot we had these thorny vines, so I'm adding those as well as some of the Cortez chests. They kind of look like grave sites or coffins, so I added a couple of those as well as some extra sinister trees around Jack Skellington's house. Around Snow White's cottage, I'm adding more foliage like fir trees and birch trees. I really want the area around her cottage to feel more like a welcoming forest area and a real reprieve from the rest of the creepiness of the creepy forest. So now that we've made our way through our creepy forest, let's head into our cabin and start building it out. I am building it according to what it looked like in the animated movie from 1930s. So if you want to make it your own, but still keep it like the movie, feel free to use your own reference photos. I'm using Googleable images when you look up Snow White's cottage interior. And again, you can follow my Pinterest board where those images will be. So I'm keeping it really simple and using a lot of similar items. I started with a few of the casita chairs and tables, as well as the spindle, some wood tables, and we're not using any electronic items here because we want to keep it very, very antique and very provincial. So we're using the candlesticks, the spindle, and a lot of wood items, as well as the rustic tavern wallpaper. Now, in the movie, there's a beautiful shot of when she comes in and cleans up the cottage, and the fireplace looks almost identical to this horned fireplace. So I'm gonna copy what the movie looked like by adding a broom, a pail, lots of crates, barrels, and a lot of brown cottagey items. There's also a rug in the movie, so I'm using the little Cinderella rug, as well as a bunch of the provincial windows. Now I'm adding barrels everywhere and fire burning wood logs. If you look at the reference photos, she's sweeping, there's a pail of water or a bucket of water, a bunch of barrels, and wood. So I really wanted to make it look like the movie. Now I'm adding this amethyst stone as well as one of Snow White's pies. You could add a lot more stones and things like that and gems. I thought the little touch of the gem made it look like the miners and the seven dwarves were in the house. Now I'm adding a bunch of pots and pans to the wall as well as the hanging pans from the Wally collection. This really looks like the movie and it gives that aesthetic that they have a lot of like wrought iron and cast iron type of utensils and pans and things that they use. Now I'm adding a bunch of sturdy chairs. For this build, I thought it would look really cute to add a lot of chairs and tables. Again, because there's 7 of them, now 8 with Snow White. So you definitely need a lot of seating to accommodate everyone. For the main table, I added a couple of the Corona chairs and some books. I also added one of the pots from the Ratatouille collection. And then I added another hanging pan on the other side, as well as a potions cupboard and some more barrels and books. This is a really easy and fun build because you're using a lot of the same items here. So if you have one of something, you can order more and recreate this build. I love, love, love how it is looking. Again, a really simple, beautiful build, and it looks a lot like the movie. I hope you guys enjoyed this build. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much. Thank you for over 100 subscribers. I cannot believe it. I literally cried. I am so, so proud of this channel, and I'm so grateful for all of you. I have so many fun builds coming, so definitely stay tuned and put on notifications and subscribe. You guys, I'm so excited for the builds that I have coming. I have like 6 builds already that I am working on, so I cannot wait to share those with you. So definitely come back soon. I will see you later. Mwah. Happy gaming. Bye, dreamers.